My fiance ghosted our engagement dinner. The photo told me why. My fiance didn't just miss our engagement dinner. She was actively tagged in an Instagram story at a rooftop bar 14 miles away, with another man's arm around her, while I sat at the head of the table we'd reserved for 14 people, staring at the salmon I'd ordered for the seat beside me. The server asked twice if she was running late. I said she was probably in traffic. I had been with Nadia for 3 years. I put a ring on her finger 4 months ago. 2 months after that, I wired $12,000 into a joint account we opened to start building a life together. And on the one night that was supposed to celebrate all of that, the night both our families flew in, for she chose a $60 cover charge and a champagne toast with someone else. What makes it worse is that she knew exactly what she was doing. I learned later that she made the plan that same afternoon while sitting in the passenger seat of my truck while I was driving my parents from the airport. She smiled. She kissed my cheek. And then she texted Lexi, "No broke vibes tonight, okay? Just come." Danny put the Instagram photo in front of me at 9:04 p.m. I looked at it for 4 seconds. I didn't flip the table. I didn't call her screaming. I folded my napkin, set it beside the untouched plate in front of her seat, and said nothing. Because I'm a lineman, 9 years working live electrical lines. The first thing they teach you is simple. When something goes catastrophically wrong, you don't react. You observe, you assess, then you act. Always in that order. So I finished the dinner. I shook Ray's hand, her father. I hugged my mother goodnight. I tipped the server 20%. Then I drove home alone. And when I got home, I opened the joint account we'd set up for the wedding and the house. $12,000 in, $743 remaining, 6 separate cash withdrawals. $11,000 gone. I hadn't approved a single one. By Sunday, every person who sat at that dinner table was going to know exactly where that money went. And Nadia was never going to be able to call me controlling again. My name doesn't matter. What matters is how I work and how I think. I've been a journeyman lineman for 9 years. Our rotation is 4 days on the line, 4 days off. The work is physical, dangerous, and built around procedure. You show up early. You check your gear. You double-check every connection before you touch it. On a live line, one careless move doesn't just cost money, it costs people. That discipline follows you home. I own my truck outright, a 2019 F250, paid off in 3 years. I built a house fund the same way I approach a work order. One fixed number every paycheck, no exceptions. I started it 4 years ago. By the time Nadia and I got engaged, that account had $38,000 in it. I didn't touch it for vacations. I didn't touch it when my transmission went out 2 winters ago. That money had a purpose. My old man used to say something when I was growing up. Money in the wrong hands turns people into strangers. So I kept my finances clean. Separate. Documented. I should have kept everything separate. I met Nadia about 3.5 years ago at a mutual friend's birthday party. She was sharp, funny, and put together in a way that made people notice her. She worked in marketing at a mid-size agency, good job, decent salary, ambitious in ways I respected at the time. In the beginning, we balanced each other out. She had energy, I didn't. I had stability, she said she wanted. About a year into us, Nadia started spending more time with a new group from work, mostly people from Lexi's circle. These were women who treated weekday lunches like events and weekends like photo opportunities. $60 lunch spots on Tuesdays, bottle service nights, group chats full of phrases that sounded half joking and half serious. The first time Nadia repeated one out loud, "No broke vibes," she laughed when she said it. I laughed too. I shouldn't have. Because it wasn't a joke. It was a value system. She redecorated our apartment twice in 8 months. The first time I helped move furniture. The second time I came home from a 4-day shift and found $300 of throw pillows on the couch. When I asked about it, she said I was being rigid, that I needed to loosen up. I dropped it. That was my second mistake. About 6 months before the engagement dinner, Nadia suggested opening a joint account for wedding expenses. It sounded practical. Vendors want deposits. Venues book fast. And because of my work rotation, she would be handling most of the vendor calls anyway. So we opened an account at Meridian Credit Union. I transferred $12,000 into it the same day. We agreed what it was for. Venue deposits, catering, florals, invitations. She kept the debit card. I had online access but didn't feel the need to check it. At the time, Trust seemed like the point. She handled the vendor conversations while I was on shift. The florist charged $1,200. The catering deposit was $800. Invitations came out to $257, which meant roughly $9,000 should still have been sitting in that account. I hadn't checked the balance in 11 weeks. That wasn't a mistake I was going to make twice. The Saturday of the engagement dinner started quietly. I was up at 6:30. Coffee, a quick look at the reservation confirmation, one last time, private dining room, 7 p.m., 14 seats, Hargrove Steakhouse. The centerpiece flowers had already been dropped off the day before. The deposit was paid. The menu was set. Everything that could be handled ahead of time had been handled. Nadia was still asleep when I left to pick up my parents from the airport at 2 p.m. Before I walked out, I left something on the kitchen counter, a bracelet I'd picked up 3 days earlier from a jeweler on Calder Street. $180. Nothing extravagant, just a small way of marking the day. When I got back at 5, the bracelet was already on her wrist. The note I'd left with it was sitting in the trash. She kissed me on the cheek when I walked in. Quick! Distracted. You look nice, she said, already moving toward the bathroom. At 6:30, while I was pulling on my jacket, she said she needed to stop by Lexi's first, something about borrowing a clutch, and that she'd meet me at the restaurant. I'll be there by 7:15, she said. 7:20 at the latest. I said okay. I drove to Hargrove's alone. By 7:05, everyone was seated. Menus open. Water poured. 14 people dressed for a celebration. 2 chairs empty. At 7:05, the first text came in. Running late, so sorry. 20 minutes. I relayed it to the table. Ray, her father, nodded and flagged a waiter down for another round of bread. My mother gave me the careful smile mothers use when they're trying not to make a situation worse. At 7:40, the second text arrived. Lexi had a thing. Leaving now. I told everyone she was probably stuck in traffic. By 8:10, no third text had come. I checked my phone twice under the table. Nothing. I thought about calling, but not in front of 14 people. So I set the phone face down and picked up my fork. A few minutes later, the waiter leaned down beside me and asked quietly if he should hold the second entree or bring it out. Bring it out, I said. The salmon arrived. I set it in front of Nadia's chair. I don't know exactly why I did that. Maybe I still thought she was coming. Maybe I just needed something to put there. I cut it into pieces I never ate. The table moved on. Conversations about travel, about family, about the house Nadia and I were supposedly saving toward. Ray told a long story about a golf trip to Cabo. My father laughed in the right places. I laughed too. Then at 8:47, Danny looked down at his phone. He didn't say anything. He just reached across the table, set the screen in front of me, and pulled his hand back. You need to see this right now. It was an Instagram story. Nadia's face. Her laugh. The black dress she'd bought 3 weeks earlier, the one she told me was for a work event. String lights behind her. A rooftop bar. And a man in a blazer standing close enough that his arm rested around her shoulders like it belonged there. Location tag. Grand View Resort Sky Lounge. Timestamp. 9:04 del pomeriggio. 14 miles from where I was sitting. I looked at it for about 4 seconds. Then I set the phone face up on the tablecloth. Danny watched me. Nobody else at the table had seen it. Ray was still talking. My mother was nodding at something my aunt had said. The dress is what landed first. I remembered her holding it up in the bedroom doorway a few weeks earlier. It's for a work thing, she'd said. You don't need to come. I pushed my chair back, told the table I'd be right back, and walked to the men's room. I called her from a white-tiled bathroom at the back of Hargrove's. My father's laugh carried faintly through the wall from the private dining room. She picked up on the third ring. There was music in the background. Loud. Hey, she said. Casual. Like any other call. Where are you right now? I asked. Still at Lexi's, she said. I told you, I'm running a little. The Grand View Resort is not Lexi's apartment. A pause. Short, but I caught it. I don't know what you're talking about. Nadia. My voice stayed flat. I'm looking at a screenshot of your Instagram story. Location tag. Timestamp. 9:04 p.m. You want to try that again? The music dropped in the background. She had stepped outside. Someone must have tagged me, she said quickly. I don't even know that guy. His arm is around you. Oh my God. Her voice hardened. You're doing that controlling thing again. I can't even go out with friends without you. Our engagement dinner started 2 hours ago. Silence. Then, I'll be there soon. And she hung up. I stood there for about 15 seconds. Looked at myself in the mirror. Thought about my foreman's voice, observe, assess, act, and about the room full of family on the other side of the wall who didn't know anything was wrong. She had just called me controlling. From a rooftop bar. During our engagement dinner, I put the phone back in my pocket and walked out. Ray was finishing his Cabo story when I slid back into my seat. My mother glanced at me once. I gave her a small nod that meant not now. Danny was watching me from 2 seats down. I met his eyes and gave him one slow nod. I saw it. Not yet. He understood. That's the thing about Danny, he doesn't need much explanation. I picked up my water glass. The salmon in front of Nadia's chair had gone cold. The waiter passed by again, and I told him to leave it. He paused for half a second, then moved on. For the next hour, I kept the dinner moving. I answered questions. I laughed when it was appropriate. I refilled my mother's wine once. When Ray asked about our timeline for putting an offer on a house, I said we were still looking and steered the conversation toward his renovation project from last spring. Nobody said anything, or if they suspected, they kept it to themselves. By 10:15, people were saying their goodbyes in the parking lot. Ray shook my hand the way he always did. Good night, son. I thanked him for making the drive. My mother held onto my arm for a second longer than usual before she got into the car. I waited until both families had pulled out of the lot. Then I tipped the server 20%, walked to my truck, and sat in the driver's seat for a moment before starting the engine. I had 4 hours before Nadia would be home. I used every single minute. I got home at 11 p.m. I didn't pour a drink. I didn't turn on the TV. I sat at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and logged into the Meridian Credit Union portal for the first time in 11 weeks. The page loaded. Current balance. $743.18. I sat with that number for a moment. Then I opened the transaction history. The legitimate charges were there. Florist, W's, double $200. Catering deposit $800. Invitation $257. Those I recognized. Then came the rest. 6 separate cash withdrawals. 1,500美元, 2,200美元, 1,800美元, 1,500美元, 2,000美元, 2,000美元. All cash. No vendor names. No receipts attached. Total? Onza 0. I cross-checked the dates against my work schedule. 5 of the 6 withdrawals happened while I was on shift. Never present. Never consulted. I printed the statements, grabbed a yellow highlighter, and started marking. While the printer was running, my phone buzzed. Danny. His message was short. You're going to want to see this. Sending now. It was a screenshot of a group chat. Nadia. Lexi. 2 other names from the same circle. Timestamp. 2:17 del pomeriggio. I read it once. Then again. Lexi. Girl, just say you're running late, lol. Nadia. He's going to be so annoying about this. Lexi. No broke vibes tonight, okay? Just come. Nadia. Okay, fine. Don't post too much. Iki. 17 p.m. I had picked up my parents from the airport at 2 p.m. Nadia was sitting in the passenger seat of my truck when those messages were sent. I remembered that drive clearly. She had been quiet, looking down at her phone. I thought she was tired. She wasn't tired. She was making the plan. She came home at 1:14 a.m. I heard the key turn in the lock. I was still at the kitchen table, laptop open, statements spread out, a glass of water beside me. She stopped when she saw me. Hey, she said lightly. I reached over, pressed record on my phone, and set it face down on the table. She dropped her bag on the chair. I knew you'd be sitting here like this. I didn't answer. I went out, she said. I needed a night. That's not a crime. Sit down, Nadia. She didn't sit. She walked to the counter, poured water, and turned back toward me. That photo meant nothing, she said. He's a friend of Lexi's. I've met him twice. You're building something out of nothing because that's what you do. You track everything. You document everything. You treat me like I'm some kind of financial suspect. Tell me about the withdrawals. She stopped. I turned the printed statement toward her. 6 rows highlighted. 1,000 美元. Those were wedding expenses, she said. Which ones? Various things. I don't keep every receipt for every name one vendor. Her jaw tightened. This is exactly what I'm talking about, she said. You're interrogating me at 1 in the morning like I'm on trial. This is the controlling thing I keep telling people about. I picked up my phone and pressed play. Her own voice filled the kitchen. It's kind of like a pre-bachelorette fund, you know? He wouldn't get it anyway. I pressed stop. The room went quiet. She stared at the phone. You recorded me. That was a call you made voluntarily, I said. In a public place. She shook her head. That is so controlling. I stood up and gathered the statements into a folder. Sunday dinner, I said. 6 p.m. Same restaurant. I looked at her once. Your father will be there. Then I picked up my glass, walked to the bedroom, and closed the door behind me. She stayed in that kitchen for a long time before she moved. The next 3 days, I went about my life like nothing had changed. Monday morning, I was back on shift. I showed up early, checked my gear, worked my rotation. My foreman asked if I had a good weekend. I said it was fine. On my breaks, I sat in the truck. That's where I built the file. I transferred the voice recording from my phone to my laptop and timestamped it. I saved Danny's group chat screenshot with the metadata intact 2:17 p.m. Saturday, her name at the top of the thread. I saved my screen recording of the Instagram story location tag, visible, timestamp visible, his arm visible. Then I printed the bank statements again. Clean copies. Behind the highlighted ones. Finally, I wrote out a single page by hand, the 6 withdrawal dates in one column, my work schedule in the other. 5 out of 6. I was on shift. Not home. Not consulted. I put everything into a manila envelope and left it on the kitchen counter that night. Nadia saw it. She didn't ask what was inside. Over those 3 days, she texted 3 times. Are you still being weird about Saturday? I think we should talk. This silent treatment is incredibly immature. I didn't answer. My foreman once told me, don't touch a live wire until you know exactly where it goes. I knew where this one went. I just needed the right people in the room when it did. Wednesday evening, I called Ray. He picked up on the second ring. Ray is the kind of man who answers his phone. Early 60s, retired contractor, the type who drives 2 hours without complaint if family asks. Marcus, he said, everything okay? There's something I need to talk to you about, I said. In person. I'd like you to come to dinner Sunday. A pause. Is Nadia okay? She's fine. But there are things you need to hear directly from me. Another pause. She doesn't know you're calling me, does she? It wasn't a question. Silence. Then he said, I'll be there. Just before hanging up, he added one word. Good. Next I called Hargrove's Steakhouse. Same private room, same table. The hostess remembered the reservation name immediately. Then I called my parents. I didn't explain everything, just that I needed them there Sunday. My mother started to ask questions. I'll explain then, I said. She went quiet. Then she said they'd be there. Same room, same table, different guest list. Friday evening I was making dinner when Nadia came home. I let her set her bag down, change her shoes, pour a glass of water. Then I placed the manila envelope on the counter between us. I want to give you a chance to explain this before Sunday. She opened it slowly. The highlighted statements came out first. 6 yellow rows. She looked at them. Then at me. Are you serious right now? She said. You're going through my finances like I'm some kind of financial suspect? It's a joint account, I said. I put $12,000 in it. For the wedding, then show me one receipt. I don't keep every receipt for every. $11,000, Nadia. Show me one. Her chin lifted. I can't believe you're doing this. Do you know how this feels? To have your own fiancé treat you like a criminal in your own home? I pulled the handwritten page from the envelope and set it on top of the statements. Withdrawal dates on one side, my work schedule on the other. She understood immediately. This is a control thing, she said. It's always been a control thing with you. I picked up my phone and pressed play. Her voice filled the kitchen. It's kind of like a pre-bachelorette fund, you know? He wouldn't get it anyway. She reached out and stopped the recording herself. The room went quiet. You recorded me, she said softly. And now you're going to play this for my father. I'm going to show your father the bank statements, I said. I'll show him the group chat. I'll explain Saturday night. I met her eyes. And if he asks about the money, I'll play the recording. She stared at me. You want to destroy me. I want the truth in the room, I said. There's a difference. She picked up her bag and walked to the bedroom. I sealed the envelope and set it beside my keys for Sunday. She went pale the moment I mentioned her father. Now she knew exactly what was coming. Saturday morning, I met Danny at a diner 2 miles from my apartment. Corner booth. Coffee. Neither of us ordered food. I set the manila envelope on the table and walked him through everything: the bank statements, the withdrawal dates cross-referenced against my schedule, the group chat screenshot, the Instagram recording, the voice clip. Danny listened without interrupting. That's one of the reasons I trust him. He doesn't perform reactions. He just processes information. When I finished, he leaned back and stared at the ceiling for a moment. $11,000, he said quietly. Not a question, just the number spoken out loud. 6 withdrawals, I said. All cash. He studied the highlighted statement again before setting it down. She thought you'd just let this go, he said. I didn't answer. I told him Ray was coming Sunday. My parents, too. I asked Danny to be there, not to say anything, just to be present. He had been at the original dinner. He had seen the empty chair. He had sent me the screenshot. He was already part of the record. I'll be there, he said. He wrapped both hands around his coffee cup. What if she cries and flips this on you in front of her dad? She can. You've got everything documented? Everything. He nodded slowly. She really thought you'd swallow it. I took a sip of coffee and said nothing. I won't pretend I didn't think about calling the whole thing off. After Danny left, I sat in my truck in the diner parking lot for about 20 minutes with the envelope on the passenger seat and ran through every way Sunday could go wrong. Ray might defend his daughter no matter what he saw. Fathers do that sometimes. Nadia might cry. She was good at that, the kind that makes the person asking questions look like the villain. And my own parents had flown in for the engagement dinner. They liked Nadia. My mother had already started looking at reception venues online. If Sunday went the way I expected, it wouldn't just cost Nadia and me something. It would cost everyone at that table. I sat with that for a while. Then I pulled the group chat screenshot back out of the envelope. No broke vibes tonight, okay? Just come. Cent dois de sete da tarde. From the passenger seat of my truck, while I was parking at Arrivals, I slid the paper back into the envelope and started the engine. I wasn't the one who needed to worry about Sunday. That evening, I checked the logistics one more time. Danny confirmed he was coming. I called Hargroves and verified the private dining room, same table, same start time. The hostess confirmed everything was ready. Then I called my parents. My mother answered. Marcus, she said. What's going on? I need you both there tomorrow, I said. I'll explain when we're together. A pause. Are you okay? I'm fine, I said. I just need you in the room. She didn't press further. They'd be there at 6. After the call, I stood in the quiet apartment for a moment. Nadia had been at Lexi's since Friday night. She left after our conversation in the kitchen without saying where she was going. I hadn't asked. I walked into the bedroom. The ring box sat on the nightstand, small, dark blue, exactly where I'd left it weeks earlier. I picked it up. For a moment, I considered putting it in my jacket pocket for Sunday. Then I set it back down. If Sunday went the way I thought it would, I'd know what to do with it afterward. I placed the sealed envelope beside my keys by the front door, left the ring where it was, and went to sleep. I arrived at Hargroves at 5:40. The hostess walked me straight to the private dining room. Same room, same long table, same white tablecloths. 14 chairs arranged exactly the way they had been the previous Saturday. Someone had added a small floral centerpiece. I hadn't asked for it. I sat at the head of the table and placed the manila envelope on the chair beside me. Ray arrived first, 5 minutes before 6. He stepped into the room, saw me, and walked straight over. We shook hands. He sat 2 seats to my left and poured himself a glass of water. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. My parents arrived next. My mother hugged me longer than usual. My father shook my hand and took a seat without asking questions. Danny came in at exactly 6 and sat halfway down the table. He caught my eye once and gave me a small nod. Then at 6:08, the door opened again. Nadia walked in. Lexi was with her. Lexi had not been invited. I looked at Nadia first. She held my gaze for a moment before looking away. Then I gestured to a chair along the side wall. There's room, I said. Lexi sat. Nadia noticed the manila envelope beside me immediately. Her smile didn't disappear, it just stopped moving. She took her seat. The room settled. I waited until everyone had water in their glasses. Then I placed both hands on the table and spoke. I wanted everyone here because most of you were at this same table last Saturday night, I said. And you deserve to know what actually happened. The room went quiet. Lexi shifted in her chair. Oh my God, she muttered. Ray turned toward her slowly. Lexi, just her name. She went silent. I opened the envelope. I'm not here to make a scene, I said. I'm just going to show you what I found. I slid the bank statements to Ray first. 6 yellow lines. 6 cash withdrawals. He read them carefully, the way a contractor reads an invoice. Then I placed the handwritten sheet beside his water glass. Withdrawal dates. My work schedule. 5 marked on shift. Ray studied the page without saying anything. Next, I opened the screen recording and passed my phone down the table. Nadia's Instagram story. Rooftop bar. Black dress. A man with his arm around her. Grand View Resort. Sky Lounge. Timestamp. 9:04 del pomeriggio. Last Saturday, while 14 people sat at this table with 2 empty chairs. When the phone reached my mother, she set it down gently and didn't look at it again. I placed Danny's group chat screenshot in front of Ray. He read it once. Then again, his jaw tightened the second time. The timestamp is 2:17 p.m., I said. Last Saturday. Nadia sent that while sitting in the passenger seat of my truck. The room went completely still. I didn't play the recording. I looked at Ray. There's also an audio recording from Friday night, I said. I'll let Nadia explain the pre-bachelorette fund. Ray set the paper down. Then he looked at his daughter. Nadia, he said quietly. Is that your name on these withdrawal slips? It wasn't a question. Nadia scanned the table quickly before straightening in her chair. This is not what it looks like, she said. He's always been like this. He tracks everything I do. He documents everything. He even records private conversations. The account had $12,000 in it, Ray said. He tapped the statement. There's $700 left. Wedding expenses. Name one. The same 2 words I'd used 2 nights earlier. She froze. Various things, she said finally. I don't keep receipts for every little... Nadia. Ray's voice didn't rise, but every softness disappeared from it. Name one vendor. Lexi leaned forward. Okay, I think what she's trying to say is that wedding planning sometimes involves cash payments that don't always... Lexi. Danny's voice came from the middle of the table. Flat, you were at this dinner last Saturday. So was I. He gestured toward Nadia. Her seat was empty for 2 hours. Lexi stopped talking. Nadia turned to me. You want to humiliate me? She said quietly. In front of my father? In front of your parents? I want the truth in the room. You're doing that controlling thing again. He's controlling? Ray slid the statement across the table toward her. Show me where the $12,000 went, Nadia. He held her eyes. Not generally. Specifically. Right now. The room stayed silent. Nadia looked at the paper. She didn't speak. Ray stared at it for another moment. Then he looked at me. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, heavier, quieter. I'm sorry, son. My mother let out a slow breath across the table. Nadia looked at her father, stunned. I folded my hands on the table. I didn't say anything. There was nothing left to say. The receipts had already said it for me. I didn't drag it out. About 30 seconds after Ray's apology, long enough for the room to absorb it, I pushed my chair back and stood. I'm not going to make this longer than it needs to be, I said. I wanted everyone here to hear the truth. You have. I looked at Ray. I'm sorry it went this way. He nodded once. He didn't trust his voice. I set $200 on the table for the bill, picked up the empty manila envelope, and took my jacket from the back of the chair. Nadia. She said my name quietly. I looked at her for a moment. She was sitting very still, hands folded in her lap, the bank statements in front of her. She looked smaller than she had at the beginning of the evening, not because I'd done anything to her, just because the room had seen something true. I didn't answer. I put on my jacket, said goodnight to my parents, shook Danny's hand, and walked out of the room. I didn't look back. There was nothing left behind that belonged to me. The apartment was quiet when I got home. Keys on the counter, jacket on the hook. I stood in the kitchen for a moment before walking into the bedroom. The ring box was still on the nightstand. Small, dark blue, exactly where I'd left it. I picked it up. I didn't open it. 3 years together. A ring I'd saved for, on my own, not from the house fund, not from the joint account. From my own pocket, Clean. Separate. Documented. I slipped it into the zipper pocket of my work bag. Not to sell it, not to throw it away, just somewhere practical until the feeling finished leaving. 2 days later, Ray called. He asked if there was any path forward on the $11,000. He sounded tired. I told him I'd already separated the accounts and transferred what remained $743 back into my personal savings. The rest was between him and Nadia. He was quiet for a moment. She's staying at Lexi's, he said. I didn't respond. Then he added, You handled this right, Marcus. I thanked him. We hung up. I sat at the kitchen table, the same place where I'd opened the laptop 11 days earlier and watched that account balance load. My old man used to say something about money. Money in the wrong hands turns people into strangers. He wasn't wrong, but he left out one part. Sometimes the stranger was already there, living inside the version of someone you thought you knew, and no amount of patience or second chances was ever going to change that. I had followed the same rule I'd used on the job for years. Observe. Assess. In that order, every time. And the next morning, driving to work, there was nothing sitting in my chest that didn't belong to me. If any part of this felt familiar, if you've ever been the one who stayed quiet and stayed useful and told yourself it was fine, drop it in the comments. And if you're somewhere in the middle of figuring out your own floor, I hope this helped.